Good morning, afternoon, and evening. This is the Liberal Artists Podcast. I'm your captain on this ship. Well, for today at least. Andy Gibby Gibson. And my first mate along with me is...
Excuse me, I'm the mechanic, Kaylie.
I did notice that.
Yeah!
As soon as that happened, I was like, oh, that's fun. That's very fun.
Oh my
right
god,
there.
no. Hey, spoilers, if you can read, the title of this episode's about Firefly.
And if you can't read, you can always get somebody to read the description and the title for you. Just ask
that
politely.
Too.
Yes.
No, like, not trying to immediately jump into the episode, but that was always something that I knew I was very excited about by this show, is that this is the one time in fiction that there's ever been a Kaylie, to my knowledge. And it makes my heart happy, like finding your name on a goofy little tourist trinket thing at a gift shop on a spinning rack, and you're searching all four sides of the thing, and you're looking for some form of validation and cheesy commercial nonsense, and then when you find it, my God, then you exist. You are really a part of this reality. You are here and you are seen.
You're going to take a Bort license plate and you're going to like it, damn it.
About the board.
Anyways, let's talk about Firefly.
Take my love, take my land, take me where I cannot stand.
Unless there's anything that you want
Nope, that's
shenanigans
enough chit-chat.
about. Okay.
No, we're here for the people. The people have been waiting for this for a long time. Here's your
For 20 years.
Here's your long-awaited
Overdue.
your Firefly revival. It's right here. It's right now. It's in pod form, just like you asked for.
I don't care, I'm still free. You can't take the sky from me.
Firefly.
Firefly was a prestige space western that premiered in 2002, written by Joss Whedon and starring Nathan Fillion, as well as...
Well, written by Joss Whedon and a bunch of other people that did really cool stuff, but like was one of those like, I could see what we were doing here, because you had people that worked on The Tick and Buffy and like a bunch of other great little projects, but it was that like in hindsight, maybe feels a little Titanic-ish. Like nobody, this was a really cool and great banding together of people coming together to produce something really cool. Did nobody like suspect that we were gonna just like crash and burn in some way? Like, one of those like the pieces are lining up a little too nicely. What's going to happen?
What's going to happen? Well, what happened was the Fox Broadcasting Corporation goofed up once again.
What do you expect?
Rupert Murdoch continues to accidentally spill like an entire gallon of soft drink that he got from like your local gas station for 89 cents across the controls of Fox, because that's how cable works, right?
Yeah, it's buttons, all one big button machine.
For as well known as Firefly is for being an interesting sci-fi western and a very unique property, you would probably know it better because of the nature of its existence, namely that
or the lack thereof.
Yeah, true. This was something that was expected to have a long run and did not make its entire first season. Out of 13, 14 episodes of the original first season, only 10 or 11 premiered before its cancellation due to low ratings. Part of that was because Fox, in all of its infinite consistent stupidity, happened to play the episodes out of order. Intentionally.
Was that actually a confirmed thing?
Yep.
That it was intentional.
Not in order.
Shenaniganry.
Not in order to tank the show immediately. Like there wasn't some guy that's just like, oh, Nathan Fillion stole my prom date.
I can't stand Joss Whedon.
which
is a normal thing to say in 2024,
Yeah.
but in 2003,
no.
that would have been abhorrent.
No, at the time he was the king of Nerd Mountain and of things that
Yep.
get 2 seasons because they're apparently too smart for the unwashed masses. But the whole deal was that Fox saw the 2-hour premiere that introduces the characters, introduces the story and the space western setting, and they decided, I don't like this. We're going to put one of the other episodes first. So they put they turned the Great Train Robbery into their debut episode, which, to be honest, is not a bad pilot episode. It's just that the pilot episode is a better pilot episode.
Right.
So,
like, on the one hand, dropping people in, like, in media res, like, just, oh, things are happening and we're figuring out along the way.
Yep.
Not a bad tactic. But, like, when you build a character-driven drama, as it is also, is a space opera, are we still calling it Space Opera Month? I don't think half of these are space operas.
Well, here's a good question, Kaylie. Who cares? It's our show, and we're going to call it
right.
Damn right.
But when you do one of those, that's very character driven and focused on interpersonal relationships and character arcs, half of the show, the monster of the week, the heist of the week, works. The other half makes no goddamn sense based on where you left the characters last time.
Yes. So this show is episodic. I think there's a very good comparison in something like Cowboy Bebop or Trigun, in that, like, not beyond just the setting of, like, bounty hunters,
beyond space,
beyond
and humanity on the brink of destruction, and we just wanted to do a western but in space.
Yes. Beyond the familiar settings to that, you have this episodic nature at which you could just jump in at any point. However, like Cowboy Bebop and Trigun, you do have entrances for characters that are important. For instance, you have the characters of Simon and River. In the pilot episode, their whole mystery and introduction is important.
What's in the box?
What's in the box?
That's it. That's it.
It's a lady. It's a lady in the box, but don't worry, she's okay. Well, she's not really
naked
okay,
lady,
but, like, whatever.
She's not okay, but she's alive.
She's living. Is she okay? No.
Homegirl is traumatized.
Traumatized psychic. You know. Everybody knows one, but. The whole,
and if you think you don't, you're mistaken. Check in on your friends.
Check in on your psychic friends.
Check in on your traumatized friends. See if they've become psychic.
Who's to say? Maybe it's being a psychic that gave them trauma. I couldn't.
Which one came first?
I couldn't handle that responsibility. I would get a paper cut on the tarot cards.
Oh.
I would accidentally drop the crystal ball on a foot. It just happens sometimes. Sometimes we drop heavy things on our feet, and that's just life. But anyways,
very pointedly,
I didn't break anything.
Just bruised your foot and your pride.
Yeah, it's fine. It's okay. We move on. We're fine. But the whole deal is that you are introducing these characters. And without that context of the pilot episode, you can't really understand why everybody is so touchy about these characters.
Yeah.
Because they're fugitives. Like, they're on the run. So it's mentioned here and there by some of the characters, but you don't get the same impact of it being, like, an important point. So really, they did set themselves up for failure. Not because they wanted to tank the ratings, but because Fox said, I think I know your show better than you do, so I'm gonna go ahead and do it.
It's just cowboys and sexy space ladies I think we can take it from here.
Exactly. Where it's like, we have American Idol. I think we know a little bit more about television than you do, punk.
I listen to public radio.
Okay, so I've said the words unique space western probably
Yes.
more times than these folks say swears in Chinese or random
Anything in Chinese.
Yeah, or just random fake sci-fi swears because they can't say fucking space.
In space, no one can hear you say fuck.
In fact, your mic cut out as soon as you shouted it, so I think that's more true than ever.
We're in space. Oh my god.
Kaylie, I don't mean
How
to
did we
alarm
get
you.
here?
We've always been in space.
Oh my god.
Let's chat about the setting
Yes.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Here. Tell me, space western. Why do you think that works?
In one of the again, just getting to know this as a show, because I knew Firefly by being peripherally dragged into the heaping mass of fan base that was still like desperately clinging to the idea of this show.
Yep.
In like peak 2010s Tumblr. So I had friends that were very, very into Firefly, and I did not watch and partake, but I knew the memes. I knew why everybody was sad all the fucking time.
Yeah.
So having only come into a peripheral like extent of it, I watched episodes and then went and looked at a couple just discussion retrospect videos and just kind of other opinions of okay, so because there's a lot of context to this whole thing, that there's some pieces of it that I was watching going, take it for granted, maybe, I don't know, and realizing, oh, that's what this thing but trying to parse through those relationships, because this is a show that is inexorably tied to its fandom that persists despite everything.
Yeah.
And I do one of the takes that I saw was that doing a space western in this way is a really good way to play at the ideas of still wanting to do the western tropes that we know and love, but we don't love realizing it's just the same thing again. But if we say, hey, we colonized the final frontier, except by colonizing, we just terraformed shit poorly and didn't really plan the civilization parts of it. And so it is the idea of the western frontier where we keep pushing forward and there's barely anything out here. And despite that, we have to use what we brought on our caravans and on our backs and make it last and survive and build forward using just scraps like that. Those ideas of that western rugged universe. It's a really good way to use that while still getting your cake and eating it too. You get those great juicy tropes that people know, and you can throw that nice little sci-fi flair on it to make it feel different enough. The bad part though is that because you're wanting to use those western tropes, when you start reading it too closely, you're like, oh, we just want to do this as an excuse to talk about the West without the racism. Instead of the Buffalo Bill, the example was used that was instead of Buffalo Bill frontier shows facing against the hostile natives, quote unquote, now we just have bloodthirsty insanely driven psychopaths called Reavers. Totally not supposed to be something else. They're just insane humanoids. Or instead of characters that deal with the fallout of losing in the Civil War, let's have it be the Alliance and some other guys. and they're basically what was left of the Confederacy because they opposed the Alliance, but it's not the same, and we don't have to talk about slavery. It was that take of it that I went, yep, okay. Thinly veiled escapism.
It's the white guy's sandbox.
A little.
I mean,
it's not just, but at the same time.
We're also going to view this very differently because the show came out 20 years ago.
Yes.
And a lot has changed in the way that we perceive media and culture since then.
But you know what hasn't changed?
What?
Nathan Fillion.
Yeah. He's still that roguish charmer, isn't he?
Truly.
Truly.
I do love, though, that, like, in 20 years, every depiction of, like, who's Nathan Fillion? It's always Firefly.
Yeah.
It's always him in those stupid high-waisted khaki pants with the belt that's, like, on his hips. Like, it's always that outfit.
Yeah.
That when I finally getting to watch this and being like, yeah, it looks just as dumb as I thought it would, but he somehow makes it look roguishly charming. God damn him.
It's that charisma. And we will talk about the characters.
Yes, sorry.
No. All good. Who can resist the charm of Nathan Fillion?
Truly.
There's a reason why in every single, like, episode of Big Mouth about Missy, she fantasizes about Nathan Fillion being her co-pilot.
Yes.
So, with the setting,
yes,
they made a choice that I kind of feel like could have been left out entirely, and we wouldn't have lost anything necessarily. In the lore, part of it is that, like, there's more of the Americanized English part of the Alliance, but there's also, like, a Chinese part of the Alliance. And it's so far spread that we see in, like, the environment and the set dressing that most of the text is written in Chinese, and much of, like, the slang and the language, like, I would have had no idea what was happening if I didn't have my subtitles on. Where, like, Amazon just popped up with speaking Chinese. Like,
yes.
Where I was like, okay.
It sucks that it's not even a translation, though.
Yeah.
Like, I was half expecting us to start getting some of those. And it's like, I want to know what they're saying.
Oh, it's probably all swears, come to think
I'm
of it.
sure.
Like,
but,
at that point, it's not a TV-14 show anymore.
But that's what I want,
That's
damn it.
what we want. We want swearing.
Let Firefly say fuck.
You can say fuck in space, damn it. But you have those elements, but you don't see any Asian people.
Yeah.
There's, like, maybe one guy at a bar at one point. It feels odd. Like,
yeah.
What with casting and, like, even just extras and everything, where I just don't know how much it added. Like, I think that it is kind of just a let's be different, but not actually dive in and explain or explore this.
Because wasn't the idea that, like, based on a, like, the trajectory that's, like, what's going to be what's going to become the most dominant language on planet Earth is statistically going to be Chinese or something along those lines, like, just based on, like, population, demographic spread, and, like, the way that we communicate, like, globally. Like, more kids are learning Chinese in school than, like, just Spanish now, like, sort of thing. Like, it's
right.
It's that projection. But yeah, the fact that there is none of that, like, Asian identity visible in as many of the character faces. And then I guess there's the question of, like, well, maybe there's an argument for, like, some parts of Asia, because we do have a lot of, like, what appear to be, like Indian, and a little bit of, like, I think that sort of border edge between, again, my geography is very bad mentally, but, like, between the cusp of, like, Middle East, like, into the Asian continent, like, a lot of that, like, demographic landscape of, like, people with, like, strong features and darker skin, and I just don't know nearly enough about the countries there to place specifically what to what place, but it felt like a lot of those faces that are seen in Firefly are just more tropes of, like, yep, there's the merchants at the docks, and they sell things, and they all look scraggly. Yeah. It's that, like, okay.
They have a little bit of diversity in, like, casting and everything in, like, the pilot episode.
Yeah.
And maybe that's because they're on one of the more, like, central planets, like,
potentially,
where there is more diversity. And most of the time they go out to like the frontier lands.
Right. Like here's a little tiny ass town on a moon.
Yeah. Very, very much the whole like traditional Western, like we may be going to a planet to do a job, but we're going to some ghost town that just has white people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think based on what you said earlier, it makes a lot of sense that there's kind of a like have your cake and eat it too of world building going on, in that like we have these things to make us unique, but please don't examine.
Please don't look at it for too long.
Please don't scrutinize it, or else it's like going down. Like,
but also that's like the pillar of sci-fi is why would we actually interrogate our own internalized like systems of class, race, and other prejudices when we can just shove the racism and like discrimination argument onto robots?
Yep.
They're not people. They're just machines. So it's different.
It's
exactly the same? No, it's not.
What if we didn't talk about this? What if we just didn't do it? Look, gunfight. Pew pew. Woo!
No.
Sexual tension between characters. Woo! Will they, won't they? I don't know. Maybe. We'll keep you wondering.
Wow, wow.
Yeah. Woo. But I think what's more interesting with like the world building and all that is more of the space elements of it. Like they do a great job of making their ship, the Serenity, not only a cool design to be able to witness it flying around and everything, but the set design of inside of the ship.
I was gonna say, my favorite part of the world is just the inner world of Serenity.
Yeah.
She, like, everybody's, again, it's like, we're not reinventing the wheel here. Everybody says this. Like, she's so clearly well designed and well lived in and, like, loved. God, I love a set that looks loved. And it's that, like, I think why, as much as I'm not necessarily a complete Whovian anymore, the TARDIS is still like a soft spot where it's that like, but there's times where not every regeneration, but enough that it's like this feels like lived in and designed to match whomever it is.
Yeah.
And like space vessels that actually look like people live there are a goddamn delight.
Yeah.
And it's why I wish like in our conversation about Star Trek last week, I was like, something I didn't mention, like we're running around between these like cold military, like impersonal ones in Star Wars that arguably I kind of wish Star Trek's like felt a little more homey by retrospect. And for some reason it's always the like, well, scrappy hooligans using something they probably shouldn't make the old decommissioned thing feel like a house.
Yeah,
we love that trope.
Something tells me that Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock have to deal with like regular inspections, and they have, a cleaning crew on board versus like these dingy space pirates that are just flying by the seat of their pants. I like that we get to see everybody's space.
Yes.
You get to see everybody has their own room and they decorate them all differently. Like Jayne just has guns versus Kaylie gets to
Jayne is just heavy weapons guy. Let's be honest.
There's no way Jayne has a PhD or 6 at that. I'll have you know.
I mean, that's fair. That's a fair point.
But like Kaylie, you get that mix of like her mechanical work as well as some of the more feminine elements. Like, did you get to watch through the episode where they have the ball?
No, I didn't. But like, I'd seen like so many like screen grabs and like Tumblrification of this show.
Yeah,
like seen lots of pieces of it. But,
so you've watched the entire show through 1.5 second GIFs.
A little bit. Like
there it is.
Like when we I mean, I know it's in the first episode, but still when we got to that like curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal with Wash, I was like, oh right, this that I kept seeing everywhere on my dash.
I definitely thought that was going to be a quote that gets quoted a lot more than it actually is. But
it's just goofy. It's just
Yeah.
Wash playing with dinosaurs.
sure,
Come on.
there it is. But
Which also, I think the room conversation though, like transfers also to where they work though, because
Yes.
like
Yes, I was gonna say that.
Wash is the pilot and he's got all of his dumbass shit all over the console, just like you would at your own desk.
in
Like,
fairness, do you think his wife would let him keep that in the bed? Because like
I think he'd have to sneak them in.
I
But
think
yeah,
so.
No, I
She
can't
would-
imagine Zoe would.
Zoe would roll over and like be impaled by a stegosaurus in the middle.
She
of
would
the
take
night.
it and break it in half in front of him. Like if he got caught sneaking dinosaurs into their bed.
Yeah. But I think you're absolutely right in that, like, not only are their own rooms unique, but their own spaces where they operate and where they do their jobs all
Mhm.
have pieces of themselves in there, which makes it a much more unique and lived in
Yeah,
situation.
like again, versus any other sci-fi where it's like, here's this part of the ship, here's the med bay, here's the whatever.
Yeah.
Like because then it's again, it's that like class suited like commission for a governmental or some bigger body purpose of vessel, whatever.
Yeah.
Like it is standardized, it is clean, it's untouched versus the like, no, this is where I work.
Yeah.
Fuck you. I spend more time here than in my own room. I'm gonna leave my stuff here. Like just little touches of prop detail, little touches of set dressing that truly do paint this world for a lot more of its worth. And I think that's what, like, in this production team of folks, like, is the biggest testament to, like, the stuff that they'd worked on previously and what they had brought into this show is that knowledge of, like, even if we have no money, spend all the money on, like, the design,
Yeah.
on building the ship renderings and whatever, but, like, just add up a bunch of little stuff
Yeah.
to make the inner mechanism and the look feel more lived in.
Yeah. And, you know, you can spend a little bit on CGI, not too much, just a little bit. An appropriate 2003, 2002 amount on CGI.
Part of me's like, I am curious to know what that budget breakdown was. Part of me's like, I also don't want to know.
I mean, like, I don't think most of the cast was really well known at the time.
They were established, but not
Yeah.
like, what I think it was, the actress that played like, I think Inara. I think there was one person in like the main crew who was
yeah.
like really hadn't done anything
Mm.
before coming into this show, versus everybody else in the main cast being like, yeah, like I've done things. Maybe not like we can't all be Nathan Fillion, but
How
like
much was he in before?
unless I have my timeline completely wrong, I feel like he'd been doing some things like through the 90s to land him the lead for that show.
I'm gonna look that up. We can take the
Yeah.
moment to be able to see King of the Geeks, that boy. Oh shit, it's that boy. Yeah, he had been around. Like he had been, Saving Private Ryan, Blast from the Past.
Yes.
There's a couple things
I
here
forget
and
he's
there.
Saving Private Ryan.
There's a lot of guys in a lot.
There's a
of
lot of
different-
guys in Saving Private Ryan.
There's a lot of boys in there. There's
a lot of boys there, don't you know?
Also, a very important role. He played Frisbee guy in King of the Hill at one point. Very important to know. But back to where we are.
Yes.
Now that we're talking about the people, let's talk about the people.
The people.
I want to talk about the people. We've mentioned a couple of them so far.
Yes.
It's an ensemble cast, but I think it's fair to say that the main character is Captain Malcolm, as played by
Mal
Nathan
Reynolds.
Fillion. Yeah, Mal Reynolds.
Yup.
He is very much the Han Solo type.
A little more psychotic and unhinged, but yeah.
A little bit. Like Han Solo is more about the money. There's a little bit more.
He also just doesn't want to be
morality.
bothered by other people's shit, but he's got a heart of gold, so he'll
Yeah.
help reluctantly.
Yeah.
Versus Mal, who again in the pilot episode flat up lies to a guy saying she's dead. And we cut away to him running to check on her going, my God, he's psychotic. And then cut to Mal and the crew laughing as Jayne goes, you're psychotic. Like,
yeah, which was interesting.
This man.
Like when I watched it, I was like, that was unnecessarily dark. And that was actually partly why Fox decided to play the train robbery episode first, because they were just like, this is a little bit darker than we want people to think the show is gonna be. Which honestly, fair for that, because
like
I was
that
like,
part, sure.
No, I'm totally fine with him like shooting the mole. Like, he just walks up like after the mole's got a gun to the fugitives, and he's just like, bang, you are dead. There you go. Like,
no, like there's some of that
solved.
like outlaw, loose cannon-y energy that we want out of a lead for a Western.
Would you call him neutral good? Chaotic neutral? Where do we line? Because he always...
No,
I feel like he always...
Because he has a code.
Yeah.
But...
And most of the time it's the moral choice.
Yeah, like most of the time it's the moral choice. However, he is not like... The way the fandom sort of adopts him as this like strong, gruff, but like heart of gold, reluctant hero kind of like it's that like, no, he's a stick in the mud. Like he is the strictest of the crew, holds ground, and is not like out for himself, but doesn't always make those kind of like,
Right.
you're right, I should morality choices. Like sometimes he does just be like, nah, fuck it.
Yeah. Sometimes he's just like, gotta do what you gotta do, bud.
Yeah.
But like, I think he's summed up quite well where he says at one point, like, when one guy's like, are you gonna kill me? Yeah, he says, like, if I shoot you, you will be wide awake, not asleep, and you will have a gun pointed at me. Like, he's pretty direct usually, where he's just like, yeah, it'd be very convenient to kill this guy, but is it a dick move?
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to do it if it's a dick move.
Which is the like, you're aware enough to sit there and ask yourself that question, which is good, but also, Mal, what the hell?
Yeah. So in addition to Mal, we have Zoe, his old war buddy. I'm
blanking on her name, though. The actress that plays her.
Saw the name, forgot the name. Sorry, lady. You were very good in this show.
But the thing is, though, I've just watched like almost all
Gina Torres.
I've almost watched all of Suits.
Oh.
And she plays Jessica Pearson in Suits. So the entire time I'm watching Firefly, I'm just like, Jessica Pearson, what do we need to do?
Jessica, what do we do? Solve my problems for me.
The mannerisms, her tone, her just like cold fire that she does for her character so well. I'm just like, I'm trying so hard to like separate the two. Like, just like, no, this is Zoe. This is Zoe.
This is Zoe, god damn it. She has a gun in this show.
These, like, so many of these just like times that she would like turn and like look at Mal or look at Simon and just like, Jessica.
Getting dumb men out of trouble.
Yes.
There it
that
is.
Suits.
Yes.
And or putting the ones that she deems deserving into trouble.
Very fair. You have them as the leadership of the team. You've also got Wash, as played by Alan Tudyk.
Which I do always forget that that's Alan Tudyk.
Tudyk, yep, that's the right pronunciation.
Like, he's the man voice acts for everything now.
Yeah.
Like, I know he was an actor as well, but just the like, right, this is what your face looks like. I'm so used to just hearing your voice come out of cartoon roosters and God knows what else Disney and Pixar want you to do.
As an alien, most recently on the Sci-Fi Channel, or
yes,
the occasional Pirate Steve in Dodgeball, if I recall correctly. But yeah, Steve the pirate, excuse me, passive language versus active language. Him as nerdy pilot and certified wife guy. That is a fun mix of badass
Wash is
lady.
a very good early example of bi wife energy.
Very fair, very fair. And like proper wife guy, not
Yes.
I'm going to put on this air and then cheat on my wife guy.
No, like he's obsessed.
Yep. He's down good.
He's down bad.
No, he's down bad, but in like a positive way.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess it's still bad. I don't know.
But anyways, to run through the others quickly, you have you have the cliche Western stereotype with Morena Baccarin playing Arana, prostitute with the heart of gold,
The ambassador
companion. You also have Adam Baldwin playing Jayne, who is a muscle. He's just a muscle with questionable morals. That's it.
No thought, head empty, just shoot.
Yep.
And maybe he'll sell out the group, and maybe he won't.
Maybe he shouldn't be part of this team, because after like 3 times, you might just want to kill this guy.
Seriously.
Like if all he offers is like casual sexism and shooting things, and is constantly being asked if he wants to betray the group for money, maybe he's not part of your
we
team.
should kick him out of the group.
Yes. But then you also have Jewel State as Kaylie. Her namesake. And speaking
That's
of
not my namesake, but
speaking of Tumblr, I think Kaylie is who I would describe as like the perfect what do they say? It's sweet baby muffin can do no wrong.
Cinnamon roll.
Cinnamon roll. I had my pastries wrong. Yes. Thank you. But
precious cinnamon roll baby.
Precious cinnamon roll baby. If she's hurt, things are bad.
Yes.
She can do no wrong. She's very sweet. Yada yada.
You have 2 kinds of female mechanics. You have Audrey Ramirez from Atlantis.
Yes.
Or you have Kaylie from Firefly.
Those
true. Are the only 2 kinds of mechanics.
Sorry, ladies. Those are the choices. Got to deal with it. But then to round it out, you have our fugitives, Simon and River, as played by Sean Maher and Summer Glau, who
They're
really
running
just had
from the law.
Really just had a penchant for being in popular nerdy sci-fi stuff that lasted like a season or 2. I'm sorry, Summer Glau, you deserved more seasons than things.
Did.
And then Ron Glass playing Bishop. Mr. Jesus. He's here for morality. But
Shepherd
also,
book, thank you.
Yeah. But he knows crime.
Yeah.
I don't know how he knows crime, but maybe.
Hey, he brought strawberries. Shut the fuck up.
That's fine. It's true. It was a delicious artisanal spread. The ideal of this show through these characters is that you have space from the perspective of multiple different people.
Yeah.
But let me ask this. How many different perspectives do we truly get through all these people?
That is the question.
Because I think Mal and Zoe basically have the same perspective on things.
Yeah, usually.
Jayne is just horny muscle
Again,
man.
we've been complaining about Jayne, and I will complain about Jayne forever. Just this, like, I get that there's a lot of just shenanigans that happen with the timeline of this show, but honest to God, maybe there was just no choice but to be like, well, we have to keep explaining things that are happening with characters just in case this episode goes out and nobody knows what's gone on.
But
exactly, after 3 times, get rid of this man. I don't care how good with a gun he is.
He doesn't exactly have much perspective.
No.
Other than sexism.
Yeah.
But then
the gynecologist joke was pretty good though. But that's it.
You said it, not me. I'm not of I'm not taking that standpoint.
I will say, as someone who has to go to a kind of college, that was kind of funny.
Oh, sure.
Still uncalled for,
Yeah.
but tolerable.
But anyways, River and Simon are kind of the same variety of perspective.
Wonder
although
twins.
She's out there, hearing voices, seeing sight beyond sight and all that. Wash, his perspective, for the most part, until later episodes where he's like, wait a second, I'm also a man, which means I get Malcolm's perspective.
Yeah.
Is mostly, I love my wife. And really,
Love
the
you.
only one apart from them that I'd say kind of in their own category is maybe Shepherd.
I think everyone has their own sort of clear worldview, and there are definitely some that overlap, like Zoe and Mal,
because they're
like
war
until
buddies.
the times they don't agree.
Yeah.
They're been through the trenches literally together. Like they do share a lot. And I think for as much as River's kind of trying to make the world make sense and being unable to fit into it, Simon is in a similar but different boat of trying to make the world make sense but being unable to, but mostly just because he's grown up a privileged twat his whole life and is like, oh, poor people have problems and now I have to do those myself. I have to solve my own problem. Shit. Oh my God. Like,
this decor is hideous.
Yeah. Versus, I think some of them are a little more ambiguous, but not like unknown, if that makes sense. Like that worldviews and philosophies make more, in good character-driven media fashion, characters' motivations and dynamics become clear when you juxtapose certain characters to one another. Like having your woman of the night have a conversation pretty right up front with your righteous man of God character, and they're both understand each other more than the other thinks initially. Like those sort of moments paint some really interesting pictures of like their own inner worlds, like within the way that they navigate through their circumstances.
I shouldn't be laughing about this, but I am thinking about, I'm not like other pastors. I'm a cool pastor. I sit on this chair backwards. Let's rap about God, y'all.
He's a little, it's a little,
but
youth Pastor Ryan.
Without the cringe, he's actually pretty cool. He's an interesting character.
He is.
I like him. Yeah.
Well, and then you have like Mal and Inara have a constant back and forth on and off.
The classic early 2000s, late 90s, will they, won't they? Oh my gosh, they kissed, but one of them was unconscious
if only
due to poison.
Mal could actually, handle a human relationship that's not a transaction.
Yeah, good luck with that, pal.
But they, like, again, we have these dynamics that we can usually see the like trajectory of like, oh yeah, they're just at each other's throats, and maybe it's enemies to lovers, maybe it never comes to fruition that way. But we learn more about their worldviews when they pit against one another, whether that's viciously, and we kind of keep Booker around just to critique and criticize organized religion at times,
sure.
Or we have them actually engage with one another in some interesting, like, not like heavy concept, but stuff that's interesting to think about in a 500 years in the future, not post-apocalypse, but certainly like on the brink of collapsing civilization kind of like dystopic crisis.
Yeah, I think what you get a lot of here, like with the way that people see things, is very much influenced by who's in command. And I'm not talking about Mal. I'm talking about the Alliance.
No, but
the giant bureaucratic government. Like, I think that causes a lot of the cynicism, because in comparison to something like Star Trek, where the government is benevolent, or Star Wars, where the government is evil, you have like essentially a bunch of pencil pushers in space.
Yes.
Who are here for, making sure that you've got your license and registration as you float through the universe. Like,
which is a fun take for like space government, evil bad guys, like that it's space bureaucracy is an interesting take, because same reviewer had a great, like, it's like this that I went, no, you're exactly right. That's it.
There it is.
That the Alliance is like cops that just show up to your apartment at 2 a.m. when you're like your TV's been stolen, and they show up and they take notes, and you can tell in their body language they don't give a shit. You're never gonna see that television again.
Not a chance.
It's that I went, that's exactly it. Because then when it matters to them, they will get the supplies and medicine and whatever they need to keep the people under their thumb and happy.
Yeah.
But they won't do jack about anything else.
Yeah.
That is to me, like, that's a more, maybe a little too true to life in some places. But a little more of exciting application of like government in space, because so often it's that, like, well, if it's so authoritarian, why doesn't it just run things? Like, or it says that it is, and it's clearly not, if you have all these factions that say they're pledging allegiance that could just easily not. Like, there's a lot more, again, sci-fi, the basis of it is always, don't look too closely, you'll pop our balloons and put holes in things. That, like, a lot of the time space government is either like too little or too much.
Yeah.
And here is a, like, no, this makes sense. What would humans do? Just barely enough, and then clog the rest of the way with red tape.
Yeah, it reminds me in some ways of like the NCR from Fallout, where like it gets so big and so spread out with so much diversity of like factions and citizens in it, that if they dedicated more than the minimum resources anywhere, it would fall apart under the weight of itself. Like, that's the vibe of space bureaucracy that I get here. Although when you've got like a cop that's really eager to fill out his quotas, then the characters go from like general apathy and cynicism towards this uniting government, and more towards fuck, I left my license at home, I'm screwed.
Shit, I didn't renew my tags. Damn it.
I forgot to bring my second grade graduation poster for the DMV.
No.
I don't know what my grandfather's blood type was. Just let me drive in space. But
space driving,
space trucking. But I think that definitely has a big influence on how they treat the world as rogues and such, because they know very well that the government is not coming down to help anybody. The government is here to collect the taxes and maybe throw one guy in jail if they're feeling like it.
Look like we're doing something without really having to do too much.
Yeah. So I feel like that's partly what sets some of their worldviews for, like, how do we get involved? Should we help people? Should we only look after ourselves? Because for the most part, like, they subscribe to the typical Western thing of, yes, we help the little people when we can. Yes, we do the right thing. Sorry, we stole your medicine. We're honorable thieves, yada, yada. Which I think is perfectly acceptable for, early 2000s.
Yeah.
I don't think it makes it as interesting, when they're always going to make the right choice. And even when they make the violent choice, it's still the morally correct choice. So
I sliced a guy, but he had it coming. Yeah, that's fair. He did have it coming.
Wild West justice, baby. Yeehaw! I do want, there's one element that I want to talk about with characters and dialogue and everything. How do you feel about the presentation of women in this show?
Oh, I thought you'd never ask. No. This is where I was like, oh, we're going to talk about the writing and specifically the Whedonisms, aren't we?
Yeah, very much.
Yeah,
I think you have to, because for further context, Joss Whedon was known in the early
Not Josh. Joss. Jaws.
Jaws. In the early 2000s, mid 2000s, and all the way up through like Avengers.
Like 2012 was
Yeah.
like the man was king of the goddamn world.
He was king of the nerds, essentially. And part of that was the strong female character as written by Joss Whedon. And the more I watched of this, I was just like, it seems like most of the female characters don't always get to exist on screen unless they're involved with a man or are in some way, beneath a man. I want to talk to Kaylie about these things. So please take the floor. The floor is yours. Rip up all the floorboards. Throw in
I will dismantle the establishment board by board.
All to say the floor is yours.
It's mine. I'm taking it home with me.
It's yours, and I want to hear you say things.
It's always a question, though, in some ways. Like, did Joss Whedon have a huge influence on the way that writing would like come in sci-fi and like fantasy to some extent, like the nerdy genres for the 10 to 15 years post Firefly were certainly affected by the way that this man like wrote and like produced and directed. Like there was a Whedon influence.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say that's like it's his sole responsibility versus just the like also kind of moment of the times of the like sensibilities of the 2000s. Because I'll be honest, you look at this and there's a lot of moments of like women, like female characters interacting with one another, like women to women versus like women characters interacting with male characters. That's like, yeah, there's some like moments that I have questions about, but then you think about the rest of what was happening in 2003 that I'm like, I can't be that mad at it out of context. Like I have to put it back in context and go, that's not bad. It could be better. Could be better.
Do you think because of that, like it felt like such a step ahead of everything else?
I think that's part of the reason why, like, when everything went down, Firefly got canceled and everybody was in their feelings. I think that is part of it. Because you look at the rest of the sci-fi that was going on around it, like, one of the big questions was this, like, oh, these, like, Trek series aren't doing great, Star Wars prequels aren't doing great, like, is sci-fi and space fantasy just kind of in a bit of a slump right now? Which kind of, yes. But like, to be fair, I don't think a lot of them were necessarily as like written as strongly as they could have been.
Mm-hmm.
And part of to that detriment is just the like, we've never had a great grasp. And I can't even say like until now, it still feels like we don't always have a great grasp on just putting women in space as characters that have their own like character outside of being woman.
Yes.
It's difficult to escape, which is sometimes good and sometimes bad. Like sometimes it's that like, no, but we can't all be on the same playing field. People experience different things through different lived experience. Like, wow, what a concept. But like women and men perceive the world differently, and non-binary persons like perceive the world differently. We can't just like write women as if we're writing male characters and leave it at that. That there is value to be had in remembering that this is somebody from a specific vantage point. However, Firefly runs into issues of those kind of broad strokes kind of tropes of like, we get some badass women moments. Like we definitely get a lot of like Zoe kicks fucking ass.
That she does.
Zoe's great. But she's also mildly war traumatized and kind of has to like, and I don't want to say like be the man of her like not just her relationship with Wash in some ways, but like trying to play it as like, I am a woman that is playing at a man because I served in the military with Mal. Like we're on that playing field with one another.
Yeah.
And sometimes it gets to be treated in that sly, coy, like cold feminine rage. And it's allowed to feel different, but then other times it feels like we're just back to this, like, this could have been a male character, but it's in the body of the woman kind of idea, which depending on the situation, I could tolerate and other times appreciate more. But it's that like you got to give me something here with those.
It reminds me in some ways of I've seen a little bit of Battlestar Galactica, and it kind of feels like the next step beyond that. In that, like, the way that female characters relate to men, especially through dialogue and everything. I was surprised in the pilot of Battlestar Galactica just how much like you can't see the female characters without there being a man involved, and usually with some element of sex involved or sexuality and everything. And it's more I won't say subtle, but it's more held back in this, which I think is better. But like, you still have like a lot of elements of, there must be some sort of tension here, or else things can't be interesting.
No, and that's where I have difficulty drawing this line of like, is this just, again, more sci-fi and space things being bad at escaping like women and the idea of sex?
Yeah.
Or is this Western where there is a very specific idea of like women and sex and those kind of relationships, because prostitutes built the West. It wasn't the cowboys. It was the women working saloons that like brought and drove people to the frontier. Women made the West happen.
And also the Chinese immigrants.
And also the which, I mean, is a fair point to say, since they certainly aren't any in Firefly.
Ayo.
They did too. Absolutely. No, but like that, and that's where I have issue in this of like, how much can I criticize this? Are we playing with the trope of the Western, or are we stuck in sci-fi tropes that we could be trying to break in our unique, cool space universe?
Yeah.
Because so many of these female characters, even if they have powerful moments, like we have Bechdel testing with some of them. Although to be fair, I can't exactly pinpoint like how many conversations actually pass the Bechdel test, because there's a lot of times where Inara and Kaylie just kind of like stand off to the side talking about things, and they're still talking about dudes.
Yeah.
Where it's that like I love their dynamic together, but it's a lot of talk of dudes. That's that like, we're not winning any brownie points here.
Yeah.
Like we're getting these women that like interact with one another and play with these really exciting relationships, but then at the same time like trapped consistently in this idea of a good chunk of our female characters have some form of either sexual pursuit, romantic pursuit, or nefarious purpose trying to be achieved through a kind of like either sexual or romantic implied relationship. Like there's the spoilers, the Miss Reynolds episode where wow, cool, a new character, and it's kind of set up that's like, hey, if this were a show with more seasons, here would be an antagonist that like rears their head again and maybe teams up and then betrays them, like depending on the situation.
And she does pop up for one more episode,
right? But like trying to sleep with every character on the ship in order to get something. So we're trying to achieve something here by means of using the body,
including hot off the presses 2002 lesbian tension. Welcome to the masses. Christina Hendricks is here to mostly appeal to male sexual fantasy.
Yes, that's what lesbians in the 2000s were for.
Lesbian rights, hello.
Let's go, lesbians. Let's go.
Yeah, I noticed that like Zoe doesn't really have conversations unless Mal or Wash is involved.
Exactly.
Kaylie
like could have been a male character, but is just in a woman's body.
Much of Kaylie is like,
she's so sweet, but also baby girl.
Yeah, but like she's either involved because she's got a daddy-daughter thing going on with Mal, or she's got her schoolgirl crush on Simon, or you have Inara who has that constant annoying will they won't they tension.
The whore with the heart of gold trope.
To which I'm just like, just fuck, guys.
Just get it over with.
Get it over with and fuck already. Like, you're a charming rogue and she's a charming ambassador. Get it
Charming
over with.
roguess.
Yeah. Like, just get it over with. You punch somebody to preserve her honor. Woo! Congrats. Just go back, but just go make out on Makeout
Go to her
Reef.
escape pod ship, come back in 30-40 minutes, tell us how it was, and then get on with your lives.
Catch a movie, eat some dinner, and then go have some okay sex somewhere else. Like, get on with it already. Like,
get on with it.
Stop trying to Ross and Rachel this shit. That died like 4 years ago. Or I guess more like 500 years ago, but whatever. Like, I think it's very much like the same thing that can be criticized in a lot of early 2000s media with, for the time, strong female leads.
Which, again, is why we let this man get away with so much shit for the next 10 years.
Yeah. Like, for the time, because it was progressive, which wasn't really that progressive.
And that's the thing. The bar was buried in the floor, and we went, yes, wow, amazing.
Something popped out of the ground to clear the bar, like tremors. And it was just enough that people went, revolutionary.
Like, kind of speaking to the Whedonisms of the writing, the other thing that I've seen a lot of people look at, with, like, in coming back and dissecting Firefly, like, 20 years out versus like 10 years from out.
Yeah.
10 years from out. 10 years out from it. It's not like chock full, but it's still very clearly there in the writing of the like the signature Whedon quips.
Yeah.
And those little stinger one-liner or like stingers at the end of a conversation kind of pieces. That like they're definitely abundant but not overbearing. What makes them bearable is that they all typically are zingers that make sense for the character who had spoken it, versus the stuff in Avengers where it's that like, oh, it's so good and delightful and delicious the first 2 or 3 times you watch it, just to like take it all in as it's rapid fire. But even by like 2010s, the quips were just starting to be like, and plug in something here. And plug in something here. And this character hasn't said anything in a while, so just give them something.
You turn everything into like the DreamWorks smile of dialogue.
A little. And I think I was very taken with Avengers, and I still love that movie very much. But like, I think that was kind of the like the peak of the peak, because then afterwards it became so formulaic.
Oh yes.
That even during Avengers, like when we couldn't really see it because not everybody was like consuming Joss Whedon content with like that kind of veracity at the time. Looking back between that to Firefly, Avengers feels more formulaic than even Firefly does, as far as like where am I plug and playing my quips versus here where it's that like, okay, here's the kind of patter of the scene or of this dialogue beat, but it makes sense for whomever's just said this thing to have said that thing because they're a cynical bastard, or, oh, but they're a sweetheart, or, oh, he made that up, like, it's Wash being Wash, and, like, it makes sense to have had them had a moment of panic and go, oh, wait, I do know what I'm doing, like, stuff like that, that's, like, we see it as trite and tropish out this far, but at the time is like, but this is actually perhaps when it was working strongest, because it was being written for the mouthpieces and the rest of the character attached to the line, as opposed to just put joke here button.
Yeah. Like, you have a cast that is very talented, full of great actors and actresses. So even if things verge on quippiness, they can still sell it and still make it work. Like, I think that's probably why above everything, like, with like the setting and the writing and everything, I think the characters are why people connected with it so much and love it so much, because
and it is heartbreaking to be like, I don't get to see y'all go do more cool shit. No, what do you mean?
Just okay, sorry y'all. Like, you can watch Trigun, you can watch Cowboy Bebop. It's kind of the same thing if we're being honest here. Like, don't tell me that Joss Whedon never pulled up Adult Swim in the late 90s and went, oh shit, that's pretty cool. Because there has to be something there. Like, the man wasn't the first one to come up with the space western. Star Trek is a goddamn space western. That was around for a little while. But suffice to say, I think because of that, that's why people gave so much love to this series, why they crowdfunded like fan films, why they created, zines and podcasts, like the first real major like nerd rage turning into nerd creativity of like the early 2000s.
And even to this day, the Firefly fandom persists amongst the shadows, deciding that someday I'll do something so bold, they'll have to bring it back.
Yeah, sorry to tell you, pal. Even if it comes back, Netflix is going to kill it in 2 seasons. That's just what happened.
We're back in the cycle of things dying after 1 season. So, maybe it might as well.
Well,
I don't know if people can handle the heartbreak again, but it would be really funny.
Well, this is normally the part of the episode where we give our final thoughts, but it only feels fitting to cut ourselves off all of a sudden and not actually get that resolution that you were looking for. Maybe you can, if you put your hearts and minds into it and you send us postcards like Firefly fans did, you'll get a special movie to be able to wrap up this episode.
Wow.
You probably won't, but I'll take the postcards anyway. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Liberal Artists Podcast. We appreciate you so much for taking your time and lending us your ears. Not physically. Do not send us ears in the mail.
Please don't send your ears.
Please don't do that.
I'm looking at you, Van Gogh.
Noted fan and friend of the show, Vincent.
Yes.
You can check out our show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. You can give us a follow over on Instagram at Liberal Artists Pod.
Yeah.
And otherwise, you can give us some stars. You can give us all the stars. You can give us a whole 5 of them.
We like stars.
Kaylie, you're never given the opportunity to do this. Would you like to tell us what happens if the fans join us on the next episode?
Tune in next time to find out what I've been smuggling and hiding in the secret panel of our ship this whole time. Bye!
Peace.
The Liberal Artists Podcast premieres every other Thursday on your favorite podcasting platform. The show is hosted by Bodio, Kaylie Horowitz, and Andy Gibson. You can find the show at Liberal Artists Pod on Instagram and Twitter. Thanks to White Hot for performing the theme song Reflect, which can be found on freebeats.io. Now, I'm off to go exploring, and maybe, just maybe, I'll find a sheep that I can call my own. Good day.
I was at the gym on Saturday, and outside of dropping a 25-pound weight on my foot, that was not the...
Oh my God, Gibby.
I was talking to a cool dude, and I reached one weight too far and pulled it off, and only
I was talking to a cool dude, and I failed my charisma check.
Yeah, he was a cool guy, and, I don't know, I was just chatting with him, and he helped me, hit a new PR on my bench, whatever. Anyways, my foot only bruised. There's only a little bit of
okay.
Only you get the feet pics, Kaylie.
Feet.
It's only
the feet podcast.
It's only a little bit of purple. It's fine. It hurt a little, but not too bad. Anyways, that was only
your pride was severely damaged.
I'll have you know, I stubbed my toe and I only cried for 10 minutes. Anyways, that was only the second most embarrassing thing that happened. The first most embarrassing thing was I was getting locked in with music. And after going from Motorhead and Megadeth it immediately popped on with a heavy metal version of Megalovania. And I was just like,
Yeah.
I can't let Dave know.
No.
Dave can't see this. He's too cool.
But then what if you're the person that gets him into Undertale with some like sick metal covers of the score?
I would never do that to Dave.